everybody.
Hey, happy Saturday. Welcome once again to MindMine TV. Great to have everyone here. Thank you so much for joining us today. We got Vargala's Vet. We got Azanka1. Congratulations on Twitch affiliation as well. We got Trunk in the house. We've got Denise the Grease also in the house. Thank you very much, folks. Really appreciate it. And for anyone lurking and hanging out as well today in chat on Twitch, thank you very much. We greatly appreciate you being here, joining the conversation. And of course, if you're joining us on Podbean or iTunes or Google Play or any other podcast aggregator, we thank you as well for joining us. We greatly appreciate you being here and listening and joining in on the conversation in one form or another. So thank you so very much. And good evening, Fuse Fury. How you doing, bud? Good to see you.
We are so excited for this Saturday because we're going to be talking about all sorts of interesting questions that you probably never asked yourself.
Yeah, so throughout this process, as we go along through these questions, feel free in chat to share your answers, or if you're just listening, make sure to also think about these questions in your own life. You know, think about how these impact you, what the answers would be, and what does that really mean? We're going to get in depth with our own perspectives today, but we're also going to share the perspectives of those in chat. So for those of you that are in chat, that are hanging out and everything, feel free to share your points of view as well. And let's start the conversation, because that's really what we want to do, especially for today, but any day that we're doing our Serious Talk Saturdays on Twitch. We want you to be there and be engaged and chat with us and really have a conversation about these different topics that we bring up. So these are going to be at least 35 deep questions.
35 deep questions.
MindMine is mining today. They're mining for your answers. So let us know your thoughts. And if you're listening in the podcast and not live, feel free to follow us on Twitter or on Instagram at MindMine TV. And right there, you can share your thoughts and ideas and concepts as well. You can contact us also through our mindminepod.com website, and you can give us a message. Send us a message and let us know and be like, hey, you know, on your podcast, you mentioned this question, and you know, these are my answers, or my answer to this specific question. And we'll be more than happy to discuss even further, elaborate even further on a future episode as well, as we come back to this and go, okay, have maybe some of these questions changed? And what are your answers then in comparison to now? Or what are your answers from before? We'd love to share that as well on one of our episodes, so feel free to contact us through there as well. Also on our website, of course, you can get our schedule and when we're going live and where you can catch us and more information on the stream as a whole, as well as our Twitch community. We'll be adding on actually artwork because we have a super major, large, put in descriptors everywhere, amount of people in our community who are just awesome creatives. And they do a lot of different sketches and stuff that they share in our Discord, which is a messenger app. And it is fantastic, the stuff they come up with. And so we're going to be sharing that not only through our social media over time, but also within or on, I should say, on our website. So we'd love to have you check out our website as well, see what our community's been up to, and see everything that they've been creating as well off stream. And really get a sense of the community. We'd love to have you join us as well. So again, every Saturday, 1 p.m. PDT, we are live on Twitch at twitch.tv/MindMineTV, where again, you can join the discussion directly, see the questions being asked right then and there, and the answers being delivered right then and there as well. It's an awesome experience. We welcome you here every Saturday.
Indeed. You put it so well.
Trying to. I feel like I'm still kind of waking up, you know, like I'm trying to get like the caffeine to hit. So like certain words are just like, you ever get it like your brain is start going, you're like, yeah, I'm on a flow. And all of a sudden it just like hits a wall. And it, you know, whether it's like trying to come up with a word or, you know, some kind of descriptor or something. I feel like that's been my morning thus far. It's like, shit. Okay, well, let me make it back up real quick. Okay, shit. All right, hold on. There we go. Okay, we're going. God damn it.
I mean, I know it well because that's how whoop, 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 got born. I know it well. Although I always blame it on the fact that English is my second language. So I just pull out my little immigrant card and I'm like, listen. My brain's just trying to work through a lot of languages right here. That's all that's happening.
Yeah, I don't have that excuse. So I think it's just, the hamster in the wheel is just tripping up a couple times. And it's okay. Everyone has that, right? Everyone has that. So we all start our mornings off right. I mean, it's kind of like a metaphor for life, I guess, right? You get going, you pick up pace, all of a sudden, something gets in the way. So what do? You get up, you dust yourself off.
You try again.
You try again. You laugh at it. You do what you can to move on, and you move on, and you keep going.
That's actually what, if you look at like babies, right? I mean, we're all excited when they take their first steps, but it's a long, painful process to get to that point, right? They keep getting up and they fall down, but they keep going, and we're all like so encouraging of them, right? We're like, oh yeah, just get up, like, come on, you're almost here, right? When they do that final, like that first cross, where they are walking across the room on their own two legs, everyone gets super excited, and nobody remembers all the times they didn't do that. And yet, as we grow older, I feel like adults just don't get that privilege anymore. Like, you're just expected to know things from the get-go, and you're like expected to just like be perfect the first time. And it's like, do you remember when you were trying to take your first steps as a baby? Everybody else was so encouraging. Like, okay, just let's get back to that, shall we?
Well, I tell actors something similar too, in the sense of, as a child, you're encouraged to use your creativity. You're encouraged to pretend. You're encouraged to play. And as you get older, a lot of those expectations are either cut away completely or restricted. And, then, of course, if you start using your imagination or creativity, at times you're looked at as crazy, or you're looked at as, being a slacker and not being grounded and really looking at the things specifically right in front of you right here, right now. And it's a bit of a shame. You have to have balance. You can't have one over the other. And I feel like, at least in the U.S., and this isn't a knock on the U.S., but just more of just something I've noticed, and that's it, is the fact that we can be very hypocritical in our language, and our language dictates a lot of our mindset. A lot of times we are psychologically conditioning ourselves based on the language that we use. And, for instance, we say that, oh, well, I'm trying to think of like different sayings here off the top of my head right now. But, there's a lot of times where we just are very hypocritical about what we say. And, we say, oh, well, we shouldn't, run our lives like this. But in the next breath, we're saying, oh, but you should run your life like this to someone else. And it's really interesting how we keep using this language, these phrases, these bits of philosophy, and we keep using them whenever it fits us. Like whenever it suits the situation, like, oh, I'm feeling down on myself. All right, well, I'm going to use this philosophy or this statement to get me out of the dumps. But at the same time, then I'm going to use a completely opposing philosophy or line in order to then, get me out of another situation. It's very weird how our brain works. And I think it's important that we get out of this kind of hypocritical mind state. You know what I mean? Like, and again, going back to like, well, we give a lot of breaks to children because, oh, well, they're children, no, yeah, we want them to grow and nurture. Well, people are always constantly growing, constantly need that nurturing in a way. That never really stops. And so to say, oh, well, for, children, let them use their creativity. But as as you get older, well, you need to curtail that a little bit, act more like an adult. What the hell does acting like an adult really mean, though? And it's funny. It's like, well, I want to be a child at heart, but act like an adult. Yeah, there we go. Like sayings like that.
Yes, right.
It's like, oh, well, you should always be willing to play and have fun. Oh, you get out there and have fun. Oh, but act like an adult. And, again, those connotations, well, those words have very specific connotations attached to them, too. So it's like, I don't know, there's always something more and deeper to how we say those, especially in the U.S., and, so a lot of times in the U.S., like, when you say, oh, well, act like an adult, that means, okay, well, be strict. Don't be, don't have too much fun and, be responsible. And, these are the lists of responsibilities that you must fit into that little suit or framework or whatever. And it's crazy, man. It is absolutely crazy. And I know it's a little bit of a tangent from where we're going off of, but it's an interesting note to make that we can be very hypocritical with our language, how it impacts our psychology based on, what we do every single day, so it's like, use that creativity, fuck it, be a kid at heart at times, just know the impact. And I think that's the true thing, is like, for instance, know the impact of your actions.
And your words.
And your words. Both can do a lot, so...
Yeah, and I do agree to some extent that actions do speak louder than words, but I also think, choosing the right words, choosing your words carefully is also important because we're human and it's hard to ignore those words as well. And just to make some commentary, or just to comment on some of the comments in chat, Trunk says that my tip is to treat everyone like a baby. Yes, exactly. Because you treat babies with kindness, usually, patience, usually. Even when you're frustrated, you're like, well, they're a baby. I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt and I'm gonna help them along, right? Because they don't know any better. And you never know when someone might throw up on you. So
that's true. I have a great story about being in Buffalo and getting thrown up on, which I've shared on stream before. So, and this was from an adult. This was not from a child. So.
And Denise says, my daughter started walking at 6 months. It was exhausting for me. Right? She was probably just like, woohoo, this is great.
And then she ran everywhere. And that's the problem too right there. You're so excited for them to run and be able to get around on their own. And then you're like, oh shit, they can get around on their own. Where'd they go?
Oh, right. Then you lose them. And that's potentially a good thing and sometimes a bad thing.
Did they go in the closet? Did they fall down the stairs? Where the hell are they? We got to duct tape them to a wall. Just let their feet kick. It's okay. Get the energy out. Get the energy out.
Babies. There's a reason I don't have them right now.
Yeah, if anything, out of these questions today, we're going to be answering questions, I guess, kind of like that in a way.
Kind
of like these statements.
This is a little bit of foreplay into our next 35 deep questions that you've probably never asked yourself.
We're warming up.
Kudos if you have.
It's like mental stretching,
And hello, Kiki Slider. How's it going? Pursue the least possible misery for everyone. I like that. That is a good line.
Well,
I like it.
I don't think enough people, I think so many people are in such survivalist mode in certain countries, where in the sense of for their own well-being that they never think about anyone else's well-being. Like, it's amazing just at how people drive, for instance, in certain cities, in certain states in the US. It's insane. They're just pulling out in front of everyone, or people are on a bike or a motorcycle or this or that, and they just pull out or, drive in between cars and stuff like that. And then they get pissed off when you almost hit them. And I'm like, you're not driving legally. It's like you want the legal rights to drive on the road to be considered a vehicle, but yet you don't want to follow the rules of that, only when they infringe against you. And again, going into this like hypocrisy and this hypocritical thinking. And that's not everyone. Don't get me wrong. And I don't think there are enough rights or enough pathways for bikers, pedestrians in a lot of different cities and states. Don't get me wrong on that. But again, it's just these situations that pop up. It's insane. But you got to think about, again, going back, I guess, to what I was saying, you got to think about what impacts everyone, though. Like not just yourself. Because there can be a decision where, okay, well, this works great for me, but screws everyone else over. Or there's a decision also where it's like, well, this does help me, but also helps everyone else. Honestly, me personally, I would rather go for that second option than the first one. Because, again, no one is an island. Everyone needs to work together to survive. That's how we survive right now. That's how I go to Starbucks and get a coffee. That's how I have internet and lights right now, is from other people, not from myself. And so we need to work together instead of saying mind, fuck you. Excuse my language. But it's ridiculous thinking. It really is. So, I like that. So pursue the least possible misery for everyone. If you're having a bad day, guess what? I'm sure someone else is too. So see how you can work together to make it a good day. If someone's having a shitty day, you're talking to them on the phone, see how you can make them feel a little bit better. And in return, you're going to feel a little bit better. It's all reciprocal.
Right. And Kiki Slider says, To Live and Die in LA, a driving manual.
It's a true story based on true events.
All right. Well, let's get into these questions. I figure we can each alternate asking the questions, and then we'll answer the question we ask, and then the other person can. And then if you are in chat, feel free to let us know your answers as well. We'd love to hear what you have to say. First question. What event in your life would make a good movie?
So you're asking this to yourself, is how you described it?
Yes, right. Well, we can do that. Unless you want to go first, I guess.
I don't care.
What would work? I don't even know.
Just go.
All right, so now that we got that figured out, what event in your life would make a good movie? This is an interesting question because I have often thought about this because I like stories, I love films, and there's the cinematics of certain events in your life, right, as it were, that stick with you for some intents and purposes. But then are we thinking like trilogy movie, or are we thinking like a standalone movie?
Let's just do a standalone. Let's keep it simple. Let's not overcomplicate this any more than it needs to be. Well, if my movie was directed by Michael Bay, it would visually look like this. The dialogue would be more in the lines of Quentin Tarantino, though, I will have to say. Just simplify it. Just simplify it. If it was one movie, what part of your life? And again, we're not talking about the whole life either. We're not talking...
Right, it's what event in your life would
exactly.
make a good movie. Not whether your life would make a good movie.
Yes.
Per se. I'm not entirely sure. There's two events. I would say maybe the number one, if it was like a kid's film, would be Coming to America, and not the Eddie Murphy version. It wouldn't necessarily be a comedy, but
I would love to see you as an old black man working in a barber shop, and then a Prince of Africa. And
I have to say,
my dreams are now crushed.
I was so excited when that movie was out because
it's such a good freaking film.
It was so good, and I was like, Coming to America. I was like, oh my god, I did the same thing. Very different circumstances.
Very different storyline. Very different.
But yeah, that would be one. But they would definitely have to be a kid's film because I was 9 at the time, so I'm not sure. The kind of the story that I would tell, I feel like might be more child friendly, but I'm not sure. The other story would be like a year in the life of a community advisor or a resident advisor at a college, because I have got some good stories to share from that. And that would be a comedy for sure.
Well, and for by the way, to go back to the first story though, for folks that aren't familiar with your story, so you came over from Romania when you were 9, correct?
Yes.
Yeah,
that is correct.
And so you flew over, of course. The family came over with you. Your dad actually came over first, though, right?
Yes, he came here back in '91, I think, around in wintertime, and there was talk of like, he'll like send for me and my mom, and I know back in Romania, everyone thought that he was just gonna cut loose and go have his freedom in America and
kick off your family shoes.
Yeah, my grandmother was very worried about that. I heard about that in retrospect, of course, or later on, but she apparently was like, for sure thought, not that she thought that my dad was that kind of man, but she was like, oh well, he's in America, like why would he, temptations and things and whatever. I'm like, I was like, Grandma, what do you imagine America to be like? So they were worried, or she was worried for a long time. My mom wasn't. And then a few months later, he managed to get the paperwork going and everything like that. And we arrived, I think it was in May of '92. So it was good times. And much like Conan, we had beds on the floor. It was because the mattresses got delivered before the bed frames.
Well, and for those of you that don't watch the Twitch channel either, Conan, because we do game stream as well, so we also are playing Conan Exiles, which is a survival-based MMORPG that our Twitch community has really fallen in love with, and a lot of people have been diving into it. So, yeah, you kind of start off on the ground, and then you build up. It's all about surviving and building, and you can build fortresses and crazy stuff. So if you're into games, by the way, make sure to check us out. We got videos on our YouTube as well, youtube.com/c/MindMine TV. Feel free to check that out as well.
But the plane ride over here and the train ride over here too.
Yeah.
Would have definitely made it.
Very kind of Harry Potter-esque when he's going to Hogwarts.
Yes, actually. Like I was just, sitting in a cupboard waiting for my letter from my dad to come whisk me away to America.
Well, and Kiki Slider says, waiting in line at immigration, signing out papers all day is the adult version of your story. So there you go.
Yeah, we did have to wait in line in immigration. I do remember that. We were in the non-American line. So it was longer than all the other lines because we weren't American citizens, of course. So that line is significantly longer and there's way more questions that they ask you. But
And by the way, for folks in chat, these questions are directed toward you as well. So feel free, share your stories if you feel comfortable. And I know, of course, you have to type it out, so it may get to be a little bit of a novel, but feel free to share because we want to make sure, too, that we can share those out as well and discuss everybody's answers to these questions, not just us. So just want to make sure to make that clear as well. And actually, Trunk1791 says, could make a short film out of how my father is showing me how to drive and crashing the car against a tree at 10 miles per hour or so. So we got off with a big bump in our hood, nothing more. Other than that, I do not think my life has much movie suitable material. But you know, hey, a car crash when you're learning to drive. I mean, that's like everyone's fear, even no matter the speed, right? It's like no one wants to get stuck in that situation. And it's like one of the worst feelings when you're like, oh God, what did I just do? I just did what I was not supposed to do. Oh shit. And of course you got the parental figure next to you just kind of looking at you and like, wasn't me? Oh shit, can't use that.
It wasn't me.
Yeah, I remember actually my dad was trying to teach me how to use a stick shift when we were down in Texas. And he took me to what usually is not that busy of a road. And so I'm trying to learn, and I'm stalling out like crazy because, again, I was never practiced on a stick shift. This was the first time ever, and I was just super nervous. And, you know, I'm on roads I'm not familiar with. I'm in a vehicle I'm not familiar with driving, and I've never done a stick shift. So we're trying it out. And, of course, what happens, there's a line of cars that start coming up right behind me as I keep stalling out. And it was just like one of the worst experiences at that time, right? It's like, again, the thing you don't want to happen, and it happens. And I just remember just getting so frustrated. But as soon as they were gone, I was like, oh, okay, I'm okay now. Everything's good. But it was just that like initial pressure because I knew that the other people didn't know what was going on. And the last thing I wanted was for them to get frustrated at me or my dad. And then, you know what I mean? Like having to go through that initial drama. But then again, it was also not as bad as I expected. You know, people just drove by, whatever. They'd give a nasty glance or something. And they move on. You're like, oh, okay, life goes on. You move. But it's just one of those things, you know, it's just one of those moments I feel like happens to so many people as they learn to drive and, you know, they get into more, I guess, or they get into more serious or active roles within life in certain ways, like the first new job, you know, you don't want to fuck that up. You don't want to get fired from that. You're like, so, you know, you're almost like stepping on eggshells. You're just like, I don't want to break anything. I don't want to, hey, I'm here. I'm ready. I'm active. And then, you know, like kids too. It's like, you know, you have the first kid and you're like, okay, don't break them. Don't break them. Second kid, you're like, oh, look, they fell down the stairs. They're good. They're good. Everyone, they're good.
They have a lot of cartilage.
Yeah, high five. There we go.
That's what it's there for.
Go on, little buddy. Do you.
So would that be the event in your life that would make a good movie?
None of it. No. I mean, oh, the cart? No. I mean, again, that was a small thing, but just to relate off of Trunk's situation here, though. Oh, so, well, see, that's different, Trunk. Trunk's saying it was my father driving, trying to explain that at the same time it wasn't me in the driver's seat yet. Well, then, that's all right, though. But that's actually humorous, then. Because then right there he's like, well, don't do this, and then he does it. So that became like a semi-dramatic teen flick to like just like a kind of a family comedy right there.
Family comedy. Here we go. So we have one drama and one comedy at this time.
Yeah, I mean, and then I will get fired today, baby.
Geeky Slider.
Don't get fired. Don't let that happen.
I think he wanted to, right? Though you wanted to get fired from one of the jobs.
Oh, you want to get fired?
So
you don't want to quit?
have a life.
I would just quit. I would just be like, hey, peace out, A-Town.
You can't fire me, I quit.
That's right.
There you go. Fused Fury. Sadly, I have no interesting movie-worthy moments. Though, when my ex was giving birth to my son, I ventured south of the waist for a few minutes that scarred me for life. So I guess that was horror movie material.
Oh God, it's like Alien. It's coming out, and you're squeezing something the size of a watermelon out something the size of a lemon. Yeah, that's. Yeah,
I watched a water birth on YouTube at one point. I didn't realize what I was getting into. Someone was like, "Oh, you should watch this. I think you'd find it fascinating." And I was like, oh, "Okay, click." And I was like, "Ah." At that point, I had not seen births before at all. So that was. I got you, Fused. It was pretty much horror for me too. I was like, what happens to my body? Nope, I'm out. Peace, tagging out. I'm out.
Well, what was it? Robin Williams said too, men will never understand that process unless you shove an umbrella up your ass and then open it.
Ah, Jesus Christ. Well then. Now we're all scarred for life.
I would imagine that's probably not too far off, and no one wants to see that either. So there you go. God, this for me, the event in your life that would make for a good movie. I mean, I guess there's been some definitely some different interesting things that have happened, but I mean, I think one of the ones that that would be a little bit more family friendly, that people would be intrigued on.
Because we have a drama, a comedy, a horror film.
It's actually when I traveled to the Middle East. This was after 9/11. This was like a couple years after. And I went to Turkey, and I went and traveled around Egypt, Alexandria, Cairo, Siwa Oasis, and a few other locations. And I mean, it was mind-blowing because, at least from a cultural perspective, it's different. It's very different, but similar at the same time. Like, they've adopted a lot of like westernized sort of mannerisms from like movies and music and stuff. The people there, but it's also very, very different all at the same time. And so just to kind of be thrown into that, because I joined it for the fact of I didn't know if I wanted to go into history as a major while in college, or if I wanted to go into languages, because I was studying Spanish, thinking about maybe Arabic, and I just wanted to do something different and get out. So I decided to jump on the opportunity when I had it. And so I had no real understanding of the culture. I tried reading up on it as best I could beforehand and stuff like that, but it's never really the same until you actually experience it. It's like I can read all day about how to play basketball or how to drive a car, but that doesn't mean I can drive a damn car or make every single free throw that I shoot. Like, you just have to do it. You have to jump into and experience it. And it was such an interesting culture shock. And at first I was so like stressed out because I didn't want to insult anyone. I wasn't here to try to start something with anyone. And also it was tough because you realize, like, in a specific culture, what it feels like to be the minority. And in this case, everyone's looking at you weird, and, they see you as this, like, for me, I'm 6'4", this white dude. So everyone's looking at this tall white guy going, okay, you're probably either American, French, European, or, and so they're like, okay, well, you got money, so let me sell to you. So, you get a lot of people trying to sell to you, or you get, we never got any hostilities in the sense of just being American or white or anything like that. It was more so just people trying to make money. So, if they were selling stuff, they're like, oh, well, you're a tourist, I can sell to you specifically. They'd go for that. But everyone else was super friendly. And it was great because we had some really good conversations with folks where we'd sit down for tea, because that's typically what you do. Either you get invited into their home, or they have tea outside or inside of their shop that they own and run. And you'll just talk, and they say, hey, look, we have nothing against Americans. We can separate typically the people from the government. So what your government does and enforces and inflicts onto any country or any war that they start, or whatever, insurgents, I should say, or anything else, we can separate that. You are not the cause of that. You can only do so much. We've learned and experienced that firsthand being in this country, as we've had a Democratic president for over, at that time, I think like 30 some years, which was Hosni Mubarak. And so they're like, we get it. We understand that, whether you say you live in a democracy or not, a lot of times your hands are tied behind your back and there's not much you can do. And so it was really eye-opening to get that perspective as well, because we do hear so much in the news in the U.S. about, oh, well, if they're from the Middle East or have a different name that isn't sort of Americanized, then they must be a terrorist. And every time in the news you hear, oh, terrorist blows up people, but as soon as it's a white dude from Kentucky, oh, well, that person was just a lone wolf. They were just slightly unstable. It wasn't like, oh, well, they were connected to the Kentuckian, whatever. Like, no, there's... they were part of some, it was a mafia hit, it was a mob hit, or, militia hit or whatever. No, like, they just say it was one person. But, here, our news loves to jump on it and just categorize anyone outside the U.S. that's just a little bit different and say, oh, well, they're part of a terrorist faction or whatever. So it was really nice and eye-opening to get that perspective as well, and to have people just be so welcoming after all the crazy shit that you hear, and just be like, here, you want to sit down? Here, these raisins are from Iraq. Have some tea, and just talk. And it was really nice. And I think the only time there was like any sense of threat in a way is because of the cultural differences. Many men they're not allowed to have sex until they marry within that culture, and in order to get married, they have to afford a home for themselves and their wife, their significant other. And so many men are in their 30s, sometimes even 40s, because they just don't have enough money or whatever, and they haven't had sex, they haven't gotten married, and so they look at people outside the culture, and some of them some people within this culture or within their culture look at, let's say, our culture or someone from Europe, like Germany or Australia or something, and go, oh, well, they're a loophole. They're technically not a part of our culture, so I could be a little bit more aggressive with them because they don't understand our ways. Oh, yeah. And so there are times where women would get grabbed, or women would get kind of like forcefully separated from the rest of the group. And so that's when we felt, again, a little bit of friction. But that wasn't everywhere, and that wasn't everyone, and that shit happens every day in the U.S. Again, I'm not condoning the actions. I'm just saying that, but it isn't really anything new, per se, in the sense of how we are as human beings. There are human beings that unfortunately do that sort of stuff and are very aggressive. But overall, it was just a very interesting experience. And I would totally do it again. So I think that's just from a cultural perspective of like better understanding people, and to be able to explore and take in what you see in the movies and on TV or on YouTube every day, and really see it in front of you, it is really impactful. It feels very unreal or very surreal, especially when we were driving by. We were in buses and we were driving past the pyramids and the Sphinx, and I'm just like, this doesn't feel real. I'm so used to seeing it in the movies, and here I am right here in front of it. And we're walking into one. Like, we walked into a pyramid, walked all the way down the center channels there, and walked into the main tomb at the base. And it was just like unbelievable to actually see it right in front of you. It just did not feel real the entire time. So it's kind of, I guess it would be like an awakening film. I don't know if I don't know if it was like Stella Got Her Groove Back by any means or anything like that. But, but it was definitely just educational in a way, but also entertaining. I mean, there were just some, silly moments and weird things that happen, and, during things like that. Like, for instance, we had an armed guard with us whenever we were traveling toward Alexandria and Siwa Oasis. We had a guy in a full suit, and he had a semi-automatic machine gun on the side of him, which is scary as shit. When you're walking around, you're going, why do we have the Terminator next to us? And it was so funny, though, because he had never been to the Mediterranean, and that's where we were at. We had stopped at a beach in the Mediterranean to kind of walk around a bit, and he had never really seen it or traveled in that area. So he was like a kid in a candy shop just looking around, and there were these tide pools, and some were super shallow. Some of them were super deep, though. Like, they went down straight like 6 feet. And I swear to God, the dude was not looking, and he literally fell into one of those whirlpool kind of sinkholes, and went straight down. We just hear a splash.
Oh my God!
And we're like, "Hey, where'd the dude go? Where did Terminator go?" And we're looking around like, "Hey, T3, where you at?"
He's the new Terminator. He just melted.
He just melted. He just turned like. And so we're looking around, and he all of a sudden pops up out of one of these little pools, these tide pools, and comes out of it and tries to look cool and brush himself off and try to dry himself off. It was so funny. But it's just one of those experiences. It was just very, very cool. So I think that would be like probably one of the main ones I would create into a movie.
All right. For all of you joining us, hello, Smitty and Mario Man. Welcome. We just finished the first question out of our 35. What event in your life would make a good movie? Good stuff.
And by the way, for those just joining us in chat, make sure to answer these questions as well. The questions that we ask are for you. We probably won't get through every single question by any means. We'll be lucky if we get through 10. But
we'll do this again.
Yeah. But we would love to have you also answer these questions too. Share your thoughts, and we'd love to also share those out to the audience listening via podcast as well. And let us know about your answers, your thoughts, or your thoughts to the answers. So feel free to get engaged. So for question number 2, what job would you be absolutely horrible at? So for me, I would be absolutely horrible at being probably like a surgeon, to be more specific. I don't want to say a doctor. Like I really find fascinating the human body and how the things around us, our environment, impact it. Like I'm really intrigued by that, and I'm really intrigued by what we can do to better this tool set that we have, basically. But overall, like if I see blood like from a real person, I can barely take a needle like in me, let alone trying to do it to someone else. But then also to try to like cut open someone and be like, okay, yeah, so there's the intestines. That looks like that's where it should be, and be perfectly cool and fine about it. I would black out in a heartbeat because I feel like I have like a lot of empathy, and so I start freaking out for the person, and I'm just like, oh my God, this has got to hurt so bad. Even though I know probably anesthesia is working great. This is rocking. But I would still freak myself out about how they potentially feel, and going, well, how the hell would I feel if I was cut open right now? And because I remember I've blacked out over minor things, like, or almost like, oh, I don't feel so good. Oh, I can't look at this. Oh my God. That I can't imagine just being at a table with someone open and me just going, oh, I don't feel so good. And then just accidentally throw up inside of them like a barf bag. Like that would be horrible. That itself should be in a movie, actually.
That's a comedy right there.
That is.
It's like a National Lampoon's like is a doctor comedy.
Yeah. Oh, I've done this a million times.
Pretends to be a doctor.
God, that's
Chevy
horrible.
Chase just goes in, just like throws up everywhere.
But it's okay. I stayed at Hotel 6 or what? What the hell is the stupid tagline? Stayed at a Holiday Inn last night.
I feel like I've seen actually Chevy Chase with a mask on, being a doctor. I don't know if that was in one of those.
He's played a lot of different characters. Yeah, I can't even remember now.
That's true.
But I think that would be mine. What about yours?
I would probably say like construction of skyscrapers.
Well, that's very specific. I can construct a shack. I can construct a closet.
I have been
the skyscraper. Hell no. Hell no.
I've been fortunate in my life that I've actually held a lot of different jobs for either a few months at a time or something like that. And so I've had the opportunity to dabble in a lot of things, construction being one of them. I didn't get paid for it, but it was part of
it was for when you got out of prison, right?
That's right. I look fetching in an orange suit. But and so I strive to be really good at whatever I get thrown my way, because that's I'm either good at this or I'm gonna quit it, which is why I've had so many different jobs over the course. But I think the one thing that I'll be really absolutely horrible at would be something where there's just a lot of there's a high height and I have to be doing something physically there.
Oh yeah, like vertigo and stuff you have to deal with.
Yeah, like I cannot. I have tried very hard to get past it, but if I'm on a high enough balcony and I look down, it just feels like the world is about to swallow me up, and I just want to close my eyes and not move. So I would just be horrible at that. I don't. I actually have a picture, and I think some of you have seen this photo, and I wish I knew more details about what it is exactly, but it's a bunch of construction workers that are working on like a skyscraper, and they're having lunch on this like metal bar, and you've got like the landscape of the city behind them, and they're just, I don't even see connecting bars. I'm like, how did you even get up there? They're all just sitting there just eating from their lunch boxes, just chilling. And I actually had that in my room for a really long time because it was inspiration to me, because those people, like I look at them and I'm like, you're up so high and you're putting together a building. And I am blown away. I was just blown away by that photo. But then just anybody who does work, physical work at heights is something that to me is just frightening as fuck. So
That's true. I used to be terrified of heights. I completely feel you on that, which is funny because I'm tall, right? Like you know, because when I fall, that's high enough, right? You know, that's high enough. It's 6'4" from the top of the head down to the floor. That's enough of a drop. But I remember, like, I used to be terrified. It used to scare the shit out of me. And one of the things, and again, they say face your fears, right? So I went to visit my family down in Texas, and there's a cavern that goes really, really deep into the ground there. And so they have a like basically metal kind of constructed tower that they've pieced together that goes up as high as the cavern is deep to give you a sense of the depth of the cave. And it's really fucking deep. So I just remember it was super cloudy. It looked like a storm was coming in, but it wasn't raining. It was behaving itself. It was really windy. And my dad's like, hey, do you want to go up to the top and just check it out? And I'm like, I'm looking up and I'm thinking in my head, fuck that. I'm like, yeah, let's go.
Sure, sounds like a great idea.
You know those situations where you're just like, your brain says one thing, your mouth says another because your mouth is being a spiteful asshole? That's what my mouth was a spiteful asshole. Like, oh, you think you're going to get out of this shit? Yeah, I'd love to go. Let's do it. And so we went all the way up to the top, and the fucking thing is shaking from the wind.
Oh.
And because it's metallic, you hear it creaking. It scared the shit out of me. And so it's like, and you got like it's shaking back and forth and swaying, and I'm like, yep, this is how we die. This is how we die.
This is how we die. Dun, 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 here in this cavern, yeah.
Pretty much. And so, you know, we're on top of this tower, and somehow, though, I got enough sense to be like, okay, breathe for a second, look down, look out, look up. And I'm like, all right, I'm still alive. Everything's good. And from there, whatever happened, whatever like hit me upside the head, it was just like, you're okay. Like, this isn't actually bad. Like, unless you're falling, then worry. Then, you know, go ahead and piss yourself all you want. But if you're not falling, you're okay. Everything's good. It's like my fear of what could happen was so bad, it was worse than what was actually happening. And that was getting in the way of actually enjoying what I was experiencing. And so ever since then, I was just like, oh, this isn't actually so bad anymore. And that's actually helped my fear a lot. But again, everyone's different. So it's hard to say like, oh, yeah, let's strap you up to a plane and just start flying and see what happens, you know?
No. I have to say, when we're at, like, we'll be in a mall, right? And they'll have like a second floor and like a third and a fourth. Depending on how high that second floor is, like, sometimes like something will happen on the first floor, right? And so like we'll look over the edge there, and you'll like, oh, I'm gonna snap a photo or something, right? And you like lean over. When you do the lean over, my entire body just like, okay, I need to back away slowly. I'm gonna die. Like, I get into such a panic, and all I want to do is like reach out to you and be like, no, come back. And I have to look away because I'm like, if I keep looking, like, I'm gonna go into this weird vertigo spinning. And I'm on the second floor of a freaking mall. It's really bad. I mean, I want to get rid of it. I want to get rid of that fear.
Skydiving.
Maybe I'll work through that.
Skydiving.
Okay. I went rock climbing.
So at least you fall, but it's supposedly safer, right? And then you survive at the end, you're like, ha ha ha.
I cheat death again. I mean, I went rock climbing, and that was really great because I didn't have to look down. Like, you just look at the wall in front of you. You're fine. It's fine.
Until you look down, and then you're like, oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And actually,
let's see what chat says.
Yeah, I was to say, we've got some people saying, let's see here, childcare. I would be a horrible. Oh, question number 2. It'd be. Smitty says it would be a phone salesman. Oh yeah. Oh my God. The stress in that, and just the degradation that you face from everyone, because everyone's hanging up on you. Everyone is like going, fuck off. Why are you calling me? Shut up. Leave me alone. You're the devil, you know? Well,
are we talking, as Trunk asked, selling phones or selling by phone?
Both of them suck. I've done both. Both of them suck.
I have done one. I have not done the other.
We should all take a trip to the CN Tower and stand on the edge. I'm good. I mean, again,
No, let's
I'm
not.
fine with heights.
Let's
I ain't gonna push it.
Fused says, so again, the question is, what job would you be absolutely horrible at? Fused says, child carer. One I can handle. More than that, my head explodes.
Fair. That is a very good point, too.
If you just put, what are those things called that you put in your ear to block out sounds? Those things.
Earplugs, yeah.
Yeah, earplugs. Just put some of those in, you're good to go.
And duct tape. Just remember, silence is golden, duct tape is silver. Go with silver. It leads to gold. I think basically any really repetitive job that nonetheless requires you to be concentrated the whole time, like border control or night guard or stuff like that, I get distracted way too easy if there's no mental input to do that. That's a very good point too, actually. That's something I would be, well, I guess it would be horrible because I would just hate it. Like, it's just no fun. I like having challenges. I do like things that become varied over time.
That's true. I would say that I wouldn't be horrible at it, but I would hate my life.
Yeah, it's true. Hey, Stuffs122, great to see you again.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us today. We're talking about 35 deep questions you've probably never asked yourself. So we're answering them for ourselves, but we're also looking at your answers as well. So feel free to share anything you'd like too as we dive into this. Our talk show, once again, is MindMine TV's Serious Talk Saturdays, where we talk about left brain and right brain topics, where they intersect, how they impact your life. And so today we're talking about like questions and, and based on these questions, what are our answers? How do they impact the things that we do? Or how do they describe who we are?
And Smitty says he does use earplugs every day to block out his coworkers.
Well, there you go. You got to do something.
Pretty good. To survive,
Ha! Trunk says duct tape is like the force, has a light side and dark side, and it binds the universe together. It also blocks out muffled screams, or it can cause them. Yeah, that's true too.
All right.
It doesn't always keep the birds out of my home. Well, yeah, Smitty, duct tape isn't very good at like a fly trap. It doesn't like attract birds to it and then pop them out. And hello, GL Gamer. Good to see you, bud. How you been?
Hey, GL. Welcome. We are talking about 35 deep questions that you probably never asked yourself.
So feel free to join in. Yeah.
All right. Question number 3.
Well, real quick, just to recap. So the first two that we've asked is, what event in your life would make a good movie? And then second is, what job would you be absolutely horrible at? So then number 3.
Number 3 is, what piece of media, whether it's a book, a movie, a TV show, etc., what piece of media has changed the way you viewed the world? And in what way? So, for me, it's a book. It's called The Road from Kurain. It's written by Jill Kerr Conway. And it was the first book, and I think to this date, the only book that I have read that does not have any dialogue.
Which one was that again?
Road from Kurain. It's a place in Australia. It's basically an autobiography by Jill Kerr Conway, who is now a Harvard professor or something. And it describes her time living in the Australian outback when she was younger. And so there's no dialogue. We had to read it for like a course I was taking or a class or something. And I just remember flipping through and I was like, there's no dialogue. And I immediately just was like, I'm going to hate this book. I love reading, but I was like, what is this? This is dumb. There's just like paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs, like huge paragraphs with all this description. I was like, is there anything going to happen in this book? And it was a very short book. I read it in one day because I could not put it down. She had such vivid imagery describing her life and the way that it changed the way that I viewed the world is that she came from this really crappy childhood and all of this terribleness happened, like the droughts that she experienced, just everything that she went through was just, it was like, to me, it was straight out of a horror film. Like, it was so bad. And yet nothing really happened in the book. It was just her recounting of, I guess, well, the stuff that did happen was horrible, but it wasn't, it wasn't like an action adventure kind of story. It was just a woman's tale of how she overcame all of that. And then that she went on and became this person that she could have so easily given up, and she didn't. And that just blew my mind, because I had never actually looked on the back to see more about her. And the book doesn't end with her being like, and now I'm a Harvard professor, right? Like, it just sort of ended her getting out of there and getting to a bigger city and, like, being a little bit older. But she didn't really say what happened to her. So I looked her up online after that and really got into her story. And she just did these amazing things with her life. And I just remember thinking, like, wow, if I had grown up in the same way she had, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I would have had the resilience and the grit and the determination that she had. And it blew my mind. And so in two ways it changed my life. One is, wow, books can have no dialogue and still be interesting. And then two, she just inspired me that, hey, you know what? No matter how shitty and fucked up shit is right now, it's okay. Tomorrow it might not be like that. And yeah, it just changed the way that I viewed the world, I guess. That, it made my problems seem a little less overwhelming and more like, okay, tomorrow is gonna be another day. Very, very Gone with the Wind, I guess, in that sense. Tomorrow.
Yeah, a little bit more opportunity ahead, potentially.
Yeah. So that was that piece, the piece of media that changed the way that I viewed the world.
We actually got some folks as well chatting in the chat room here. Besides folks saying that, they don't English well, which I am right there with you at times. Stuffs actually does say my favorite books would have to be the Demonata series, if I'm saying that correctly, hopefully. I'm not familiar with the series myself, but it kept me from killing myself while on deployment in Iraq. So, well, thank you very much for your service, by the way, Stuffs. And I do earnestly mean that, because there's a lot of stuff that has gone down in the Middle East and with all the combat and everything. And there are amazing things, both terrible and whatnot, and good in a way, that have happened through those conflicts. And so I can only imagine what people there have experienced and seen. And there's plenty of things I can't even imagine. So can completely understand that, and I'm glad that you're still here with us and in the chat as well today. But yeah, if anyone, or if you'd like to in chat as well, kind of tell us about what that series is about. We'd love to know more about it, as well as, again, like I said, I'm not familiar with. I don't know if you've heard of it or not.
I am not either. No.
So feel free in chat if you'd like to. Feel free to let us know a little bit about what that series is. Tomorrow will be Birthday Day. Favorite book, The Lover by Marguerite Duras. Interesting. Also a book I've never heard of.
And again, this can be any piece of media. It can be a movie, a TV show, a documentary, a piece of artwork that you saw.
Yeah, it could be a painting. It could be a photo. It could be a sculpture that, it made you look at things in a maybe a different perspective. And it just, things maybe somehow just kind of clicked, and came together.
How about you, Evan?
I mean, there are a couple different ones, and I think it's just based on like the inspiration behind it. Like there are so many things I feel like that are out there that don't just change your worldview, but maybe even more specifically, just change a specific niche that you viewed. Like for instance, like how you view, let's say, film overall. Or how you view, I don't know, like theater, or how you view storytelling, or how do you view this, what I mean? Like, you get inspired by those in those senses too. So I'm trying to really think of something that has a more world impact to it in a way. And I feel like I've shared this before, actually, when we were talking about what influenced us to do streaming and to do the years of film work that we've done and online media and everything else in theater. And one of the ones actually, and I don't know if it was really the piece per se or the reaction to the piece, I think. And that's kind of tough too, you know, because sometimes it's not the piece itself, but how other people have reacted to it that can really change your view on the world. So there was a piece done by Western Michigan University, or WMU, out of Kalamazoo, Michigan. And they did a theatrical piece that talked about like assisted suicide. And again, this is getting a little dark, but I'm not going to get into that dark of detail. But it basically was about like assisted suicide, like what the people went through, how the families felt. It talked a bit about like the Jack Kevorkian story as well. And it was very interesting because there was a lot of breaking of the fourth wall and delivering monologues out directly to the audience, and then kind of coming back into the story again, and then breaking out again. And it was all originally written and everything for the university. And, you know, it was well done. I don't think it was like the best, most amazing thing ever, but I thought it was really well done. And they produced it in a way that just worked with the content that they were dealing with, that they were working with, because it's heavy content, you know. It's not something to really be taken super lightly by any means. So I thought it was very well done. But at the end of it, I think the thing that really impacted me was how important stories are in telling us a really, really good story, and how they actually impact us. Because I'll tell you what, at the end of that, when the lights came up, people were crying, people were talking to one another that didn't know each other, people were discussing the topics of the play, people were just talking about how they just felt fortunate to have the life they do have in comparison to some of the characters that were portrayed in the play and what they went through. Or some of them could relate to the things that they went through. You know, some of the situations that the characters portrayed, they were like, yeah, I went through that, or my mother went through that, or, you know, like, I get that. And it was just amazing to actually see people connect when, you know, most of the time you get into a theater and like, okay, well, I want seats not next to someone. You know, you're like, I want to separate as much as possible. We're treating this like urinals in a men's bathroom. We're spacing things out, folks. And so it's like, you know, you want your own like little bubble, and that's it. But at the end of it, people were hugging each other. People were shaking hands. People were talking, crying. Again, just this full array of cathartic emotions just spewing out. And I've never been in a situation like that before, you know? I've never been to a play or anything where it had that big of an impact on the folks around me. And, you know, I usually love to overanalyze things. I mean, I don't know if it's a good thing or not. I'm usually the person like at a concert, and I'm actually breaking down the specifics of how they're doing the production and how their performance is going, and like what they're doing and why they're doing it, and figuring out how it like psychologically impacts all this crazy shit. I'm breaking it all down. I'm looking at the lighting, seeing what they have. I'm looking at this element and this element, and trying to see how it all comes together as a full image, right? I'm looking at like the different like brush strokes of a painting in a way, you know what I mean? In order to see how it all came together, like, because I'm just intrigued by that naturally. And so when I saw this, I just I went into my like sitting back mode and just reflecting mode and taking in like all the different interactions. And it was just, I don't know, it was like amazing. It was just very unique. And it's something that we don't usually experience, especially in the US, where many people are like, I don't want to show emotions. I'm strong. I'm an adult. I can take care of my shit, you know, which is complete bullshit.
We all have emotions, everyone.
We all have emotions. We're human. You know, if you don't agree with that, there's other channels for you. But, you know, it's just it's the way it is. We're human beings. We're going to be angry. We're going to be sad. We're going to be jealous. We're going to be depressed. We're going to be anxious. We're going to be all these different things. So we might as well accept that and embrace it now. You know what I'm saying? And it was just really nice to see like that bit of openness, and to like really get a sense of how people react to a good story though. And that's what pushed me to want to get into this line of work of media production and telling good stories and connecting with people no matter how far they are, because you can have an impact on people's lives. You can change the life of somebody just by small acts. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You know, again, many people will probably watch this episode or listen to this episode and go, oh, that was cool, and then move on with their life. But there's going to be someone out there who actually vibes with something that's said, and it really hits them in a new and unique way. And that's the power that streaming or any kind of media has. which I think is really important for people to understand, especially those who create that content, that you do actually have an impact on people, whether you realize it or not. Whether you're streaming a game, doing a talk show, recording a podcast, it does not matter. And I got to witness that firsthand after this play of just how telling a story in the right ways can impact someone. And what was nice was that the play wrapped up by kind of saying, well, this is where we're going now. This is how we're moving forward. So it didn't just go, okay, these are these people's stories. Yeah, people died and that was it. Scene. You know, there was a little bit more to it. And that I appreciate too, because I'm like, oh yeah, you can do something like that. You can give people like next steps of how to kind of make this reality on stage become a reality in life. And I really appreciated that. And that's, I think, what's driven me to also want to do that, like for our talk show. You know, it's like, okay, let's talk about these topics that are in the news, but then let's also talk about steps. What are the next steps? Because I get tired of getting the other kind of bullshit media, you know, where it's like, oh yeah, all these terrible things are happening. All right, then what do we do? What are the next steps? Come on.
You go into your bedroom and you close the door and you take a nap.
Yeah, take some pills. You'll be better. You know, it's like, well, what are the next steps then? What can we do? And that's, you know, I realize you can do that with storytelling. You can do that with media production. You can do that in so many different ways. It's amazing. So I think that would probably be the piece of media in a way that has really kind of changed my worldview on more specifically storytelling, but then also how something can impact and reverberate through many different people. So that would be my story, at least.
I have to say that reminded me of something similar, you know, when you were talking about how, you know, people have an impact, whether it is through creating content, but also just being a person and being in the world and existing. When I was in middle school, I went through some dark years, and I don't mean I dressed gothy or anything, but I was having a rough time.
You were listening to a lot of Lord Vader, weren't you?
Star Wars is so good. But I was going through some rough time, and you know, there was times where I didn't feel like there was any reason to go on, and that nobody saw me, and that nobody wanted me, and like all of this stuff. And I remember one time I was walking home the same way I always walk, and I was walking kind of slow, and I didn't have any thoughts in my head, and it was really scary to me, and I was just walking and walking, and all of a sudden, this random guy just is like getting into his car or whatever, looks up at me, gives me this beaming smile, and says, "Hey there." And my entire, like, everything just changed inside of me. It was amazing. I was like, "Oh, hi." And it's like, I was like, all right, I got home, and I was just like, wow, like, somebody saw me and said hi to me. And this, like, that smile that he had. And it was like this random dude. Just like this random dude who lived, like, 2 blocks away from me. And that was another time where I was like, wow, like, that person, that's a complete stranger, changed, like, he had changed my life that day. And you know, that was another moment where I was like, wow, people do have power, you know, whether or not they realize it. I mean, he was just apparently really friendly. Or maybe he saw the way I looked and was like, hey, like, what's up? How's it going? You okay? But whatever the reason, it doesn't matter. It changed my life. So I am forever grateful to him.
It's a domino effect, you know,
exactly.
You knock over one domino, no matter how simple it is, it gets knocked over and everything else starts hitting and falling into place.
Exactly. And definitely from that day on, I've been like, if I see someone who looks like they are maybe having a rough day, like, I'll just, hey there. And, you know, it may work, it may not, who knows? It worked for me. So, thanks, dude. Thanks, random dude.
Thanks, random dude. Oh, and hey, well, random dude just joined the chat. How's it going? No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, do you remember me? Put that on, what is that? Craigslist has the missed connections.
Oh, there you go.
I don't think it was back.
Random dude from back in the day.
Yeah.
Who smiled at me, who drove a car. Go. Denise Grease in chat says also Catch-22, my favorite book. Very nice. Smitty says September's Child by Rise Against. Give it a listen. It will make crap going on around less crappy.
I like that.
Stuff says so much bad things happened to him, yet at the end it was a good ending. Oh, for the book series, very nice. Let's see here. And thank you very much for the follow, by the way. Of course, on Twitch, you can follow, you can subscribe, or just hang out and enjoy chat. And so we would like to also thank a couple new followers there. Thank you very much for coming in and joining us today. Let's see here. We also trying to just catch up on chat as we go along here. And that's true too. And Trunk makes a good point too, that there are a lot of things that are neither good nor bad. It just is. Yes. And we put our own kind of connotation or spin onto it. Because again, our brain is the filter for everything that we see. So it's either going to be positive or it's going to be negative, right? Or it'll be like, oh, well, it wasn't what I was expecting, but that's okay. And so it just is what it is. And we're just sometimes more analytical than others. Absolutely. Let's see here. And GL Gamer says, it's funny because a random person greeting me one day on the street while badly depressed myself led me to the current small church I'm at and changed a lot of domino effect things in my life.
Oh, that's awesome.
A lot for the better, and for the bad things, better ways for me to cope.
It was probably that same random dude. He's just going around.
You're both going to like create
people.
an ad on like Craigslist, like, hey, random dude, you know who you are. You've been getting around. I see it.
Oh, that's good to hear. But you're right, Jill. Sometimes the simplest, positive, but genuine gestures can make a huge difference. Exactly. And I think that word genuine is also important there. You know, because if it comes from a place of authenticity and like somebody actively trying to do something genuine, that's good.
Oh, it wasn't a random dude. It was a random lady that was actually the pastor's wife at the church. So.
Oh, all right. You know, he could have gone through transgender reassignment, gender reassignment.
Wow, she's really pushing. All right, she's pulling all different kinds of straws.
While, so. Next question.
So, question number 4 here. What's the most crucial thing for a healthy relationship? By the way, don't take any of these as, the end-all be-all of advice. If we say anything, these are just our thoughts based on these questions, just to verify that. This is like we have. We're not doctors, we're not psychologists or therapists. This is just based on either having experience with psychologists or therapists, or doing that to ourselves, asking these questions, or just a lot of trying to analyze the things around us. Like I said, I overanalyze the shit out of a lot of stuff. So with that. What's the most crucial thing for a healthy relationship? For me, I would say it would have to be. It's tough. Relationships are such a weird thing, and so many things are connected to one another in a way, right? Like you could say, well, for one, you need to trust in each other, which is very, very important. You have to have that belief system in one another. But then, what does trust really mean, and how in depth do you mean for this belief system? Are we talking about just within that relationship, or do you mean just with the things they do every day? Like there's a reason why you got with this person, so you should trust in the actions that they take, rather than trying to control what they do, how they live their life. Like there's a reason why you're working together in a relationship rather than like parenting in a way, whether they actually need it or not. But then there's also the fact of communication, right? But it's like, okay, well, what comes first in chicken and egg theory of like, well, you need to communicate to make sure that you understand each other so that way you can trust each other and further flourish that trust. But what comes first? Like, do you have to really have that trust in order to properly communicate at the depth that you need to be in a relationship? Or should you communicate first to help make sure that trust is fostered in a way? And again, you can go one way or the other, and people are going to say all different things with it. But I guess I would have to go with maybe not trust, but let's use the word belief in each other. That you have to believe in one another, in my eyes, to be in that relationship. If you think they're dumb, if you think they screw up everything that they touch, then why are you in a relationship with them? Why do you think this is like the kind of equal in your relationship then? Because evidently you don't think that, and what that becomes is more of a power play. It's more of, well, I feel like I'm better than this person, and so this makes me feel good, so I happen to be in that relationship, rather than like, no, I'm really in this relationship because of the person. So if because I've also been in those relationships too. Well, I've been in a relationship that lasted for a long time, but that was kind of the thing. It was like anything I wanted to do or I liked doing, it was looked down upon. It was frowned because there wasn't that belief in it. There wasn't the belief in what I liked doing, which was performance and entertainment and things like that. For example, or that belief that I could actually do something with it. And I feel like you have to have that belief. And I'm not saying a belief in everything, right? I mean, again, if they say, hey, I can jump off this bridge and survive just fine, you might want to question that.
You might want to check the stamina first on your bar.
Yeah, it's like, it's not a video game here, folks. But, there are certain things that you should believe in them in, Like if they really want to do something with themselves, then have that belief. If you don't, then, again, don't try to change them because that's not your call to change them. It's their call to change themselves. As the saying goes, you can't help those who don't want to help themselves.
Oh, very true.
And so, they're not going to change anything until they decide to change it and if they want to change it. So if it's something you disagree with and that's how they are, that relationship is most likely not going to work or is not going to be a healthy relationship. So at least that's my thoughts on that while trying to keep it concise, as we have like 35 deep questions you probably never asked yourself.
I mean, hey, this can be a 5-parter. It's no problem.
But what about yourself, Chatiana?
I'm not sure what to call it. the like in 1 or 2 words here. So I'm gonna try to describe it. Bear with me here. Maybe there is a word for this.
Okay, here we go.
Are we?
No. Just...
Okay. It's having that like openness and like it's like an open kindness, I guess is the best way I can say that it is in 2 words. Where it's more than just like, kind of you were saying, like you're in this together, you chose to be in this together for a reason. So, trust in that person, believe in that person, communicate with that person. It's sort of, I guess, along those same lines of, be open to the fact that this person is somebody that you have decided is important in your life. Mm-hmm. Realize that they're a human being. And I guess in a way, treat them like how you would want to be treated, but also treat them with kindness, and if something doesn't go according to your plan, right? Realize that they're not you. Have conversations about that. Hopefully feel safe and trust that you can have a conversation with them about it. If things are going well, encourage and point that out and celebrate wins and celebrate things that are happening that are good. If they want to experience something that you've never experienced and they bring up the subject, be open to it, listen to them again, have that communication, but really just I guess like kind of like an open kindness is really the only way I can describe it, because I have been in the relationships where like we hear terms like trophy wife and like, all this other stuff. Yeah. Not that I was one by any means, but just the term where you're in a relationship with someone, either just to be in a relationship, or you have this idea of, they're not really a best friend, or, if you're lucky enough to find that, or anything like that. And at that point, to me, you can still have a relationship with this person, whether it's your friends or your, or relationships where you have family, right? Like you can still have relationships with other people in all sorts of manner. But for a healthy relationship, I think to me what's important is that, having that open kindness. And I'm not saying that it's easy by any stretch of the imagination. Right. But again, just, realizing that you're, one of my, I guess, favorite sayings that I have for myself is, you're in it together. You're a team, or that's the ideal, right? And when you are on a true team, you're not out there to I'm better, I'm smarter, and this and that. And and realizing that even if you are like that as a person, maybe, you know, that in your own kind of cocoon of a team, don't be like that. try your best not to, kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. I guess. So does that make sense? The open kindness, I guess, kind of fits it, maybe?
Yeah, we're kind of along the same, similar lines in a way, for sure, too.
Yeah.
So, no, absolutely on point. And we have folks in chat as well that have said, you know, love, but I feel like the right kind of love from my experience with past relationships. Mutual, the kind that encompasses a lot of other things being listed, compassion, trust, trustfulness, etc. The fact that you care well enough, not just for yourself, but this other individual, that you try to do the best all around for them, and both of you together. Maybe a cop-out answer, but it's my thought, at least, as GL Gamer. And Denise says, and never use disrespectful language towards each other. GL Gamer says, and as an add-on to what I said above with love, even sometimes the kind of love to let someone go if you both realize you're not happy in this relationship, to find the ones you both need. Very good point as well.
And Fused also notes honesty in any relationship, be it friends or family or lovers. And Trunk also being able to talk honestly and timely with each other. And I think that's also important too, the timely factor. That's it. That's a good point, you know, because you can let things fester to the point where you're like, damn it, you know, this has happened 15,000 times. And it's like, okay, but have you ever communicated with your partner?
Yes.
To
exactly
let them
right.
know back when it was only the 10th time. Hey, maybe this not so much anymore.
That's true. Well, and people do that so easily with friends and everything else. It's like, if you have a problem and, you know, that moment of being able to properly bring it up comes up, you know, I'm not saying like all of a sudden you have a couple drinks and be like, by the way, you were a complete asshole.
Yeah, that's the wrong time to bring it up.
Yeah, you know, it's like, you know, make sure it's like in a conversation where, you know, for instance, if someone says, hey, I've noticed that, you know, you seem a little bit more frustrated and stuff like that. You know, what's been going on? Or I haven't really heard from you. What's been going on? You know, bring it up, or be like, hey, can I talk to you about something, by the way? Bring it up that way. Again, there are times where you're going to lose friends from that. I've had that happen. But again, you want relationships ideally that you can be honest in, because if you can't be honest with friends and family and with you know, your intimate relationships, you know, like wife or girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, whatever it is, you know, then what's the point of that specific relationship then? And people probably say too, well, family's family, I didn't pick them. Right, but you can pick which ones you have relationships with and who become much closer part of your life than other family members. And so, you know, with that, if they're not willing to be honest, if they can't take honesty, if you are, again, delivering it in a way to them that is thinking about their feelings too. You know, so if you're saying, well, you're an asshole, well, yeah, that doesn't go very far. But if you're saying, well, hey, look, you know, these were some of the things that you did, and this is how it made me feel. Now, again, I could be looking at it from a whole different lens, a whole different perspective. And if that's the case, just let me know. But if I'm not far off, you know, I really want to talk about this. And like, can you just give me your insights to it? I think that's a good way of going about it. Because at least you're giving them a fair shake and going, I might not be right on this. And I just want to hear it from you. But I've had people even get worked about that. And I'm like, all right, well then great. Easy. I can stop, you know, investing time into this specific relationship because it's not worth the time. Time is money in a sense, and in this sense it's a lot of money in a way, you know what I mean? Like so you don't want to invest it in the wrong people. You know, if they don't want to be a part of that, then, you know, don't drag yourself into it, because you're only hurting yourself at that point. So we got a lot more in chat as well. Let's see here. We have having things in common won't save your relationship. Having great sex won't either, by the way.
True that, Denise. True that.
See, had almost read the same thing again. Agreed that communication is a very important part in any connection with people, GL Gamer says. And Trunk says, I personally feel that sex is, for a want of a better word, overrated in many relationships anyway. You will not spend most of your time together in bed, probably, especially as you grow old together. So, yeah, it's more about communication, what you do for each other, how do you look out for one another. Yeah, there's so much more than just that. For sure. And people put too much emphasis on the sex part too, I feel like in the way of like, I don't know, it's weird because like some people use it so flippantly, like, "Oh, did you have sex with him last night? Oh yeah, woohoo!" And but yeah, are you gonna call her again? And then they're like, "Oh, are you gonna call him again? No. Oh yeah, who you? Haha." And then there's times where it's like, well, but sex is this, really intimate thing, and it's so weird. Like what people, again, those kind of mental gymnastics, like I was talking about earlier about like the hypocrisy in language, about how people are like, "Oh
Right.
yeah, go you,"
Right. Well, I mean, and I think we can even have a whole episode discussing sex in general. But there's physiological stuff that happens during coitus, and then there's mental things that happen as well. And for some, depending on their experiences, sex can be a way to be intimate, and for others, that is not the same for them. They are intimate in other ways, or sex is just one of the ways that they are intimate in. So I think that also depends on on the differences between people as well, for sure.
Oh yeah, and there's so much that goes on psychologically with people and health wise with people that can impact many things that you might think should be in a relationship, but they just for whatever reason cannot do. I mean, there are people, for instance, that let's say are autistic. They have a trouble really socializing well. Doesn't mean that it's not the right relationship, right? Again, there's people that face obstacles that can be in a relationship, and they might not meet every single thing on your checklist of what you consider a relationship. But that doesn't mean they're doing it right. Yeah, it doesn't mean that you're doing it maliciously, though. Not by any means, or that they're doing it maliciously, and that this isn't the right relationship for you. Then, you have to consider all the different aspects of what this reality that you're actually in is, rather than this kind of hypo reality that you've created in your head of like, this is what the perfect relationship would be.
Yeah, I have to say, I watched just a small tangent, then we can move on to the next question. I watched the most recent episode of Grey's Anatomy because I've been following that show for God knows too many years, and they had like double weddings, and it was just it's amazing. I feel like in some ways I'm out of the matrix, as it were, like looking in on this, and the show prides itself on being so forward and so like progressive and all this other stuff, and yet in a season finale what happens is like we're celebrating these two heterosexual weddings and these very like, or three, I think there were three of them. And like they were all different, but they were all also the same. It was very interesting how like that was, I still felt like I was watching some sort of like Disney princess story where I'm like, okay guys, we get it. Like it was just very interesting because they were trying to make them like, oh, they're all unique and whatever else, but it's like, no, it's the same expression, or I guess it's the same tradition, I want to say. It's the same tradition, it's just expressed a little bit differently, and I thought that was interesting as well. Like, in some ways, we're so progressive, we're so this, and I'm like, yeah, but you're still catering to mainstream everything still. And that was just interesting, speaking of relationships. But
well, and I will say though real quick, now that you brought that up, it can be really hard to figure out what the fuck is the right answer, whether it's to a relationship or really anything.
Life.
Because we get so many messages being sent to us through things like advertising, TV shows, films, books, and sometimes those are ideals of other people, but we see it constantly enough where we go, well, this must be the norm, right? This has to be, when you look at the spectrum, this is the median, this is the normal or the regular. And that's not the case. I mean, it's amazing how many things have been warped and misconstrued and put into something, and then people take that as the one and only of how to run your life. It's mind-blowing. And so it gets even more difficult when we see things in TV shows, for example, or read things in books or whatever, and we're like, oh, this must be how it goes then. But it's like, you would never do that with news articles, at least more recently now in the US. Less and less people are trusting a lot of the initial news they hear on stuff. And a lot of people are wanting to get other different resources just to make sure and be like, because there's a lot of crap news out there, whether it's for clickbait or it's for the benefit of one party over another or one person over another. And so, some people are starting to wake up to that and look around and just see, okay, well, what are other options? What are other things out there that are happening? And it's important to do that with the things we learn in books and stuff too, or like how we use our language. Again, going back to that I mentioned, based on the words we use, the phrases we use, and things like that, like that can really impact our way of thinking without even realizing it. And it's like we're almost, not that I'm saying we're brainwashing, but we're in a way we're brainwashing where we're changing the way we may naturally think because of these elements. So it's always good to kind of put that into question too, of like, are my ideals really what are to be considered a healthy relationship? Or is it something I just saw in a movie, for example? Many films also joke around about this, like Shrek, for instance. In the first Shrek, he comes in as the ogre with the knight, and he's grabbing Fiona off the bed, and they're charging down, and she's like, "But this isn't how I planned it out." And right. Wait, but you're supposed to kiss me. Well, won't you let me know who you are, Sir Knight, and all this other stuff? You didn't slay the dragon, and it's like, so yeah, are you Fiona at that point in time, or are you Shrek, where it's like, this is reality. Let's just get the hell out of here. There's a dragon trying to kill us, So. There's that to kind of keep in mind as well.
Well, I think what we see in the media also is it's like some sort of average. And what I mean by average is they took all, like you look at a spectrum and they take all of the, let's say, points, right? And then they do an average. But that average might not even exist. Like, that might not even be real. It's just what everyone else who is like, all the other points are looking at the average and being like, oh, I need to be there. Yeah, but that's a construct. That's not even a real thing. Why are we all trying to not be our own self points? Why are we all trying to be this average point? And then we're all that average point. What's the point? It's very fascinating.
So many points.
So much math.
Quick maths.
Quick maths.
2 + 2 is 4. -1 is 3. Quick maths. So, if anyone's familiar with that meme, check it out. Or if you're not familiar with the meme, check it out, I should say. If you are familiar with the meme, you're welcome.
It's all about the journey rather than the destination. Exactly, Trunk.
It's true. And if you feel, by the way, that you are screwing up things, maybe it's the fact that you're not screwing up things. It's just the expectations are a little too different, or a little, or not correct for the situation. And that you should have expectations that are a little different or altered in a way, because maybe it's that again, when we were talking about what is a healthy relationship? Oh, well, you can't also hit yourself over the head if you say, well, this relationship didn't work, but I figured everything was checked off my list, everything was there, so why did it end? You could look at it and go, well, that doesn't make it perfect. My list does not make it perfect. I mean, these are ideals, but that doesn't mean in a world like this that it meshes up into something perfect. There are still other things that we can't think of that come up in life. And just because something happens, it doesn't mean it was a failure. You still got results. It was different results, but maybe that was also a good thing. I mean, you've got to look at both sides of the spectrum. It's so easy for us to say, oh, well, the news cycle, well, we have to look at different news sources, but it's so hard for people to be like, oh, maybe I should look at different sources of what the hell I'm saying too. Or what the hell I'm telling myself. Oh, this is a bad situation. Oh, really? Let's go through it then. How was it bad? Okay, that's easy to focus on that, but then how was it good? What were some of the good things out of it? Or what were, and be honest, not just what are obviously the good things, I won $1 million, but really look at it and go, well, what could have been actually a good situation out of this? Stepping outside of my body for a little bit, and just if I was to talk to someone else in this situation, how would I see this from another point of view? And if you can't get that point of view, talk to someone. Talk to them. Get their point of view. And don't just take it as, well, they're just telling me this because, I asked them to talk to me about it. But actually take it. Listen to it a little bit and then implement it the way you want to. Because again, what they're saying doesn't control what you do either. But it's how you take those bits and pieces and implement it into your own toolkit to make it work. That's, I think, how we really take on life as a whole. You take these little bits that you're handed and you piece it together the way you need to make it work for you. And someone could say, well, you piece it together this way. You piece it together. I cannot tell you how many articles I've read in entrepreneur.com or Inc. or Forbes where they're like, people who are successful, who are multi-billionaires, they only sleep 3 hours a day, or they sleep 10 hours a day. They keep putting out articles all the time on these stupid ass recipes for life that never fucking work, because they're all varied based on the person, based on the situation they were in, based on the connections they have, based on the resources available to them, based on so many factors. And again, this is where we then have to go into, do not judge yourself based on other people. Judge yourself on your past self. If you feel like you're falling behind from that past self, then see what you can do then. Because maybe you're not taking the right steps, which is why it doesn't feel like it's working for you. Again, if you have a wall on your right-hand side and you say, well, I want to turn right, guess what? You keep bashing your head against it. No wonder you're not going to go through it. There's a wall there.
Get a pickaxe or something.
Yeah, figure out something else you can do then. All right, well, if I keep walking down here, eventually I can take a right later on. Or maybe I should take a left instead, or keep going straight. Or maybe it's, let me find a damn tool and I can get through this damn wall and move forward. You know what I mean? You keep running across those obstacles, then figure out a way to face them. Figure out what you're doing that isn't working, and figure out then, okay, well, let's try something new. And again, that doesn't mean it's going to work either. You're trying something new. Keep in mind that too. We're always trying. We're always trying to do stuff. If people are successful at things, they've tried multiple ways of doing something. And they've failed a lot of times. So again, don't put yourself up to other people. Just know not everything is going to work out, but that's not always you screwing up. There are so many factors. It's so easy to blame yourself because you're right here, right now. You're the first thing you see, right? But it's so hard to really look at the minutia of all the little things that came into play. Because again, everything is like a domino effect. We mentioned this analogy earlier. Everything is like a domino effect. So you could be like sixth in line in that domino line, and you just got hit by a bunch of other dominoes that you had no control over. So you can't say that, well, this was my fault and I keep screwing things up, or I didn't do this right, or I ruined this relationship, or whatever. You've got to look at all the other factors too. And sometimes it takes a bit of honesty with oneself too. But again, figure out what that honesty is. Because again, it's too easy to beat yourself up.
Right. Kind honesty as well.
Yeah.
Truthful, kind honesty.
Constructive criticism.
Right.
That's really what we're getting at, constructive criticism.
And like you said, with the toolbox or whatever, I have changed my toolbox and my presumed destination so many times in my life. I actually was married, got divorced, and when I was younger, I never thought any of that would happen to me. I thought I was going to be smarter than everyone else, and I was going to know what I was going to do and when and how and all of this other stuff. And then I found myself married, and I was like, oh, wow, I never thought I'd get married. That's cool. And then I found myself divorced, and I was like, oh, all right, cool. I didn't think that was going to happen. And I say I found myself as if I had no direct impact. But I did. Those are all choices that I made along the way. And I learned to change my toolbox and my destinations. And I looked at that right wall and I was like, all right, I need a tool to either get through the wall or, maybe this isn't the right way. Let me backtrack and let's see where we're at. So there's definitely no right or wrong way to do something. It's just GL Gamer brings up an interesting quote here. Life isn't a standard jigsaw puzzle box. It's more of a sandbox of experiences. It's a throwback to Conan as well here.
See here, and then Trunk says, the optimism of youth. Well, I would say it's not just the optimism of youth. Again, I think it's also that language that gets in the way again, where we say, oh, well, the young are like this and the older have to be like that. Again, once you start designating yourself in that way, you could actually be doing more harm to yourself than anything else. I mean, it's amazing. I've seen from a health perspective, I know actually someone who's a friend of ours who is a personal trainer. And he says, it's amazing how many people have, eaten a certain way or have treated their bodies a certain way and, maybe didn't work out or anything like that. And then when they get old, they're just like, oh, well, that's just old age. Me not being able to really walk well, or having back issues or hip issues or knee issues, like, oh, well, that's just because of old age and I don't have good genes. But that becomes excuses, because he's like, I've also worked with those people. I've also done workout plans for them and helped increase their mobility, their flexibility, focused on their breathing. And it was amazing how much they changed, how much they started walking around, and people assumed they were younger, because again, we have this concept of in our head of like, well, this is how young people are supposed to be, and this is how old people are supposed to be. And I get so tired of hearing people, and again, no offense to these people, I just personally get like just literally just kind of tired of like hearing it, of like, oh, well, I'm just getting old, those pains and aches. And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, some of that does come along with the territory. Don't get me wrong. Your body gets a lot of use in its lifetime a lot of times, no matter what. But at the same time, though, it's all about how you take care of it. It's all about how you motivate yourself and keep yourself motivated to take care of this toolkit. There are a lot of times that we think we're doing something positive for our bodies, when this whole time maybe it wasn't either. It's just, and then we feel it after a while and we go, oh, it's just old age. We got to stop using that as an excuse and really look at the reasoning behind it. Why do I feel this way? Because there are plenty of people too who have exercised throughout their life, and then people who have not. And the people who have not, maybe they smoked too or did other things. Yeah, they look like they're 40 years older than what they actually are in comparison to the other person who looks 40 years younger. So it's like, it's all about how it's all about, I guess, how you take care of yourself, how you treat yourself, not only physically, but what I'm trying to get at too is mentally.
Yes.
Again, using that language. How do you do psychology against yourself? How are you working against yourself to better yourself, to make yourself feel better? And again, optimism is in the eye of the beholder. One person could say, oh, you're just being optimistic. But then what you're saying is then that the world is a lot darker than what's actually coming out. That doesn't mean that your dark view is also, or your darker view is more real than the more optimistic view that you're listening to as well, or that you're watching. So we all have to keep that in check too as well, that I can't say, well, someone's being way pessimistic, because that could actually hold some truth in what they're saying too. Because what you do when you say that you're just being pessimistic or optimistic, you're brushing off what they're saying and denying, basically in a way, just denying everything that they say. But we can't do that to each other, and we have to better understand that, again, life is a melting pot that has constant ups and downs, and it's not about being optimistic. It's about just better understanding and being willing to accept that and then try to move forward with it. And there are people who are young and, they think they know everything. And then there are people who are young who have experienced a lot of shit in a small period of time, who have had to learn a lot very quickly in comparison to people who are much older too. So, again, we can't reflect, just how I mentioned, you can't look at other people's successes and go, okay, well, that's how I'm supposed to compare myself. But you're also not supposed to look at other people and say, well, they're not like me. I'm here, they're over here somewhere on the spectrum, or I'm putting them over here on this spectrum. We don't want that done to us. Let's not do that to other people too. And I think that's very important to make sure as well. And I'm not, again, poking fun or trying to start conflict with anyone, but just in general, I just want to make sure to say that as well. Like, maybe it's somewhat optimistic, but at the same time, I mean, you drive a lot of the things that happen to you too. The mind does have a very powerful connection to what happens to you. Not all the time. There are a lot of things that are outside of your grasp, but then it also impacts how you handle those things that do happen. So I think it's important just to kind of remember that as well, just not judge and not judge ourselves to others, but also not judge other people to ourselves is the main goal of that. Sorry, a little bit of a tangent, but I'm trying to keep it into like what we're talking about today. I think it's very important.
I will still continue to tell my cat that she's cute, though. I don't care what you say.
And she'll be like, why the hell are you touching me? Where's the food?
Food, human. Food.
I don't care about the cute factor. I care about hashtag food. Food me.
Food. All right. Question number 5. It's going to be a 7-part series. I like it. I love the conversations that we are having with you all, though. I really, really, really appreciate all of your answers and the fact that you're taking the time and the focus to talk to us about this. So number 5 is, what lies do you most often tell yourself. That's right. Lies that you tell yourself. This is a tough question. Because my first reaction is to be like, I don't tell any lies to myself. And I'm like, okay, let's let's stop and really reflect, though. They might not be lies that I, look at myself in the mirror and say to myself. So I was trying to really think about this and be honest with myself. And I think that one lie that I tell myself is that I have time. Like, I have time to do the things that I really want to do. Or, that daily life obligations and that, the things that I see the media telling me to do and my friends and family tell me to do, those take first priority. And I'll have time to do the things that I want to do later. And I don't think I don't think I say that like to myself. I don't just sit there and like, Tatiana, you have time. I think it's just in the actions that I take and the way that I procrastinate with some of the things that I want to do, that I have wanted to do for a long time. The things that I've wanted to say, the ways that I've wanted to react to certain situations. I feel like I tell myself that I'll have time to do it later. And like for right now, I'm not going to. I think that's the biggest lie that I tell myself. And I feel like I've been more cognizant of this recently in the past few years. And I want to stop telling myself that lie. Because you have today. Like, do the stuff you want to do. Say the things that you want to say. Feel the way that you want to feel. And it's hard because you might not be used to it. I'm not used to it. But you have to make that a priority. You have to make yourself a priority. And I think that's something that I'm working on. I think the other lie that I tell myself pretty regularly with words in my brain is that that being healthy or like being my version of what I consider healthy is just gonna come. Like I might not really have to work at it. Like I don't really have to work at it too hard. And that's just not true. It's not true. And if I see improvement, like if I do something to try to be more healthy, whether it's, getting more physically in shape, drinking more water, not looking at my phone in the middle of the night because that hurts my eyes, really just all of those things. I'll do it for a little bit and I'll be quote unquote good is how I describe it to myself. And then I'm like, I have a pass for the next 2 weeks. And then it's like 2 weeks later and I'm like, 2 more weeks. And for some reason I tell myself like, oh, it'll just be so easy to get right back into it. And it's not. But I would say that those are the two lies that I often tell myself. I can't really think of anything else, certainly not at like this stage of my life.
Otherwise you'd be lying to yourself.
But I would say those are the two. I guess I don't really talk to myself a lot. I know that I've had some discussions with people where I their minds are constantly running or they're not necessarily that they have conversations with themselves, but like they're very like active in their mind, I guess is the best way I can explain it. And I think I'm fortunate that I don't experience that. I am pretty silent in my head as far as I can tell. I would say in some ways I feel like I'm more observant than not, but it isn't observant about everything. I'm like observant about very specific things and completely oblivious to like the majority of my environment. But I do get lost in my thoughts in terms of like stories and like imagination more so, I think, than like the reality of what's happening, which is what it is, neither good nor bad. But that's what I would say.
That's good. I like that. Those are good ones. It's a good one.
So yeah, and again, you're right. I mean, like those are the lies that I can, I guess,
Not that we're like
articulate and realize that I'm telling myself.
Yeah, sometimes it takes a little bit more like thinking through stuff a lot of times, or for something to like drastically change in our everyday life and how we function, that then it forces us to have to shift those lies and go, whoa, wait a minute.
Yeah, and that's at this stage in my life, this is the stuff. But when I was younger, I probably told myself different things.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, absolutely. They always change, they always adapt, and it's amazing what we do again to make sure that everything just works and that we understand everything, even if it's not true. I understand that totally. GL Gamer says, oh wow, lies I tell myself. I can handle this on my own. I should handle this on my own. I shouldn't bother people with my issues. All those in quotes. Very much along the lines of what negative things, lies, my depression and anxieties trick me into taking as truth. It's taken me years to recognize these lies and others, and they still slip by me sometimes. GL also says, also I recognize it's always going to be a continual work of improvement, and that's okay. Absolutely right. Trunk says too, I fear we do not even recognize a lot of the lies we tell ourselves, which is very true too, right? If we think it's a truth, we're not going to say, well, there must be a lie. Also, do you mean in the sense of willful untruth, intentionally telling yourself something that is not, or the sense of false fact, something you see or at least experience differently from how everyone else experienced it? I would say it's based on not the outside obstacles, but with yourself, like trying to tell yourself, like, everything is okay when it's not sort of situation. You know that cartoon that was drawn, I can't remember how many years ago now, where the dog is in a burning house and he's drinking coffee, he's got his little hat on, he's like, everything's fine, I'm okay, everything is great. And it's like,
this is fine.
We clearly see, nah, it's not. It's like one of those, it's one of those things, like the dog knows clearly it is not fine. But that's what it tells itself. So it's one of those situations, what I think we're trying to get at with the question.
Yeah. Culperistic says, I guess most of the lies I tell myself boil down to, quote, it's too hard, you can't do it, unquote. When the truth is you could do it, you just don't want to pay the cost of doing it. It's an interesting way of putting that. I like that.
Whether it's time or energy or whatever it may be, it's true. Or it cuts into something else that you'd prefer doing. Absolutely right. I think that's when I get caught up on as well, says GL Gamer. Just going through all, and hey, welcome Mongo, good to see you, bud. Thanks for joining us. And Culperistic, of course, thank you so much for being here, bud, appreciate it. After you've cataloged what you lie to yourself about, have a second think about how much honesty is best for your relationships. And then have that relationship with yourself too. How much honesty?
Oh, that is your first and most longest relationship is one that you have with yourself. Well, which is why you should be nice to yourself, you know?
Yeah, well, as the other saying,
your body.
As the other saying goes, in order to love someone else, you first have to love yourself.
That's true, yes.
So, there's got to be some truth to that. I think there is, to a point. You can't go woe is me and rely specifically on the other person when they're also trying to take care of themselves too, no matter what kind of relationship it is. Let's see here. It's never with the energy. Laziness is bliss. I will say on my end, is it possible? What lies do you often tell yourself?
That you would like to reveal on stream.
I had it in my head and then it like,
the lie is trying to protect itself.
Right. Subconscious, like, no, motherfucker, no!
Do not say it out loud.
Bad.
You will make it true, no.
I'm going to put your nose in it. What lies do you most often tell yourself? I think one of the ones is, okay, so for instance, I think one of the things is like, I try to be as trustworthy as I can be. And I try to really support people as best I can, not because I want anything out of it, but because I do want to help other people earnestly. It's like, I've faced a lot of interesting things to say in my life. And I've been down and out. I've been, I've had some okay highs, but I've had some really bad lows, both personal or from external sources. And so, I've seen a lot of stuff, and I do try to empathize and utilize that experience, the baggage I kind of carry around with me every day, and try to implement that in other ways and try to think about, well, these are probably the things that other people are going through. So I try to be there for them, and I try to engage with them and do what I can. Not as like a charity case again, but just because I understand life can be tough, and there's a lot of things that we can get the shit end of the stick, as some people say. And so, I earnestly just want to be there to see if I can alleviate even some of that stress, even by doing this. If I can entertain someone, make someone laugh, great. That's awesome. But in relationships, I get caught up in, like, whether it's friends or whatever, where I tell myself, especially if it's a very negative relationship where there's a lot of, like, manipulation involved, I always tend to tell myself, like, no, everything's okay. I tend to be that dog in the burning house. Where it's like, dude, you should get the fuck out and, like, stay away from this sort of situation. But I'm always trying to think of the other person and go, well, no. Maybe that's not what they meant. Maybe it's me. Maybe, you start doing the blame game to yourself and go, well, it's not their fault. And then anytime that person tends to do something positive, right, that kind of rekindles that thought process again. And you go, see, you start making excuses and lying to yourself more, like, no, see, they really meant that because they cared and they care about being in this type of relationship as a friend or whatever, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, well, no, either it was just, there are times where it's just circumstance that just happened to happen, or it's further manipulation. So I have a bad time or bad luck, I guess, of lying to myself and saying, okay, no, you know what, this situation is gonna be fine. It's me. It's not the other person. And that's okay. It's my fault. Or maybe I just make up all of these excuses for him until I keep repeating the same excuses. So I think that's one of the bad things that I do typically lie to myself about. It's like, when I'm in a bad situation, just get the hell out. That's okay. It's not a bad thing to jump ship if the ship is sinking,
But captains are supposed to go down with a sinking ship, which is a thing and it's the stupidest shit ever I've ever heard. I'm like, what? That makes no sense. No sense.
People need a captain. People need a captain to help them off the damn ship and to guide them away from the disaster.
Right. The ship is a tool. It is not. It's like, no, let the tool go. Get yourself another tool. But anyways, I digress.
Yeah, just like relationships. You're dating a tool, drop that tool and get yourself another tool. God damn it.
Anyway. Hopefully the other tool is less of a tool. Good times.
But yeah, I think that's my biggest thing right now. We got a lot of stuff going on in chat here. I don't know if you want to hit some of those.
No, I think we did. GL Gamer says, I've had some past friendships that were not good to stay in with that kind of thinking myself, Evan. So he gets you.
It's tough.
Putting down.
It's really tough because you don't want to hurt the other person, but what we tend to hide or push back away from ourselves is they have no problem hurting me. And at least if you handle it correctly, you go, hey, look, I'm good. I don't want to be involved in this anymore, in this situation. That's at least a good way of handling it, rather than like, fuck you, or punch him in the face or something. Like it could happen a lot worse. And so I don't want to say, well, they're willing to hurt you, so you should hurt them. Again, no. But it's how you go about it. And if they're going about it in a malicious way, then what's the point of staying in there? Go about it in a way that works healthily for both sides, and just go, hey, this isn't working out. So, best of luck to you. I wish you no harm. Just good luck. I need to focus in on myself and the people in my life who do show that they care, rather than trying to. And this, I will go on on a little bit of a tangent. It's mind-blowing the amount of people, and we were talking about this earlier. It's mind-blowing the amount of energy we spend on trying to get the attention of people who could give two shits about that energy, and how easy it is for us to brush away the people that try to invest that energy into us, and we overlook it. And we go, well, what's wrong with you? You're actually giving me the time of day. And here I am trying to get this person to give me the time of day they're not, so I'm going to keep trying to go for that. Like, where are we in the Twilight Zone? What is happening here? And I think that happens too then, because you put all this energy into something that's not working, not healthy for you, that you're missing out on all the good things that could be happening. So. True that.
Mariaman says, the worst lies I tell myself are probably ones I believe are truth. In the analogy of the dog in the burning house, I don't see everything as being fine, but I feel I deserve to burn inside the house.
And that's tough too.
Mario Man, you do not deserve to burn inside the house. You deserve to get out of there. And call all of us. We can help with like watering it down or getting you on a ship out of there.
Yeah, because in the end, you've got to be the captain of your own ship, even though we don't have full control of the ship, Like a strong wave can come up or an iceberg can come up. But it's what you do in those moments. And, never beat yourself up and trap yourself in that house waiting for it to burn down. It's not the way to take on those issues, and especially because no one deserves that, no matter how horrible of a person they are. Even I don't think that should happen to anyone. So and again, you, from what I can tell, are definitely not a horrible person by any shake of a stick, and we appreciate you here and everything like that, and what you provide to our community. Anytime you do, we do appreciate that. So from what we get and from what we know, you're definitely not a person that would deserve something like that, especially. And, it's all about how you take care of yourself too. If you're feeling down and out and you feel like you're a horrible person, then, do something that really can help change that mindset. Even if it's going for a walk, going to the gym for a little bit, working out, and just going, wow, I did a little bit of something. I feel a change a little bit. I feel sore, but that's a change, and that's an all right change, and I'm doing stuff. And, look at the things you are doing. And if you feel like, there are things that you could do, see about how you can go about doing those. It's about taking smaller steps in order to get to the bigger things. So see where you can feel, smaller achievements in order to help you work toward bigger achievements. And again, it's amazing how that can change your outlook as well.
And things take time. And that's totally okay.
Yeah, don't rush the process either. One day you feel great. Enjoy it and embrace it. Next time you feel like complete crap, that's okay. And you got to tell yourself that's okay too. And that's one of the hardest things for people to do. Mm-hmm. It's because, we all try to judge, and we judge based on how everyone else is feeling, supposedly. And we go, well, they look like they're having a blast. I feel like shit. And it's like, don't do that. Just go, okay, I'm not feeling great today. That's all right. That is okay. There are days where, again, I absolutely love streaming. I love being here. I love talking to every single one of you, being able to connect to people all around the world. I'm dead freaking serious about that. But there are days where anxiety, depression, all different kinds of things can impact that, right? And especially to me, I've had that happen. But you go, you know what? I can do this. I'm going to try it. I'm going to put my toe in the water and just try this and try to progress through it. And I realized that, what I was thinking, whatever it was, whether I was down on myself or a general situation, I can move past that. I am more than just that concept of me. And it's a very small concept in my own mind. So, you can move through that. Absolutely. And for anyone else in chat listening, you can absolutely move forward through that. So if you take away anything else, if you feel like you are worthless, you don't, deserve good things, if you deserve only the worst, you do deserve better than that, much better than that, and that you are just your own biggest critic. And once you understand that, you can move on. Understanding that you are putting that lens on yourself and no one else is, and even if someone does, that does not matter. What matters is what you do every day and the impact it has on yourself as well as others. At least that's my thought. Again, take that with a grain of salt. That is my belief. I'm not going to say that's 100% fact, but that is my belief. For me, if I'm having a bad day, screw it. If I can make someone else's day good, then I know I'm going in the right direction. If I feel like, hey, you know what, I'm not doing anything well today, but I can make someone laugh at a stupid joke that I make, and I make a lot of them. Fused Fury and Check can, concur with this. That's all right then. I at least am doing something positive. I made someone smile, hopefully helped them give a little bit of rush of adrenaline, a little bit of energy going so they can have an extra step in their day. Great. And I at least feel like, I feel like crap, but at least I did something that could help impact someone. So.
And there's something that a teacher actually said to me once, kind of going back to what you were saying, Evan, before about choosing your words. is that, the little voice that you talk to yourself with, the things that you say to yourself, think about whether you would say those to somebody you love or, a good friend.
Sure too.
If you wouldn't dare to think to say those words to them, don't say them to yourself. And if you find that you are starting to go down that, stop and say, what would I say to a friend that was feeling like I'm feeling right now? What would I say to somebody that I love? What would I say to them? And say that to yourself instead. And try it. Try it for a day. See how it goes. Try it for a few more days after that. And see how that feels. Because, as I was saying before, it's important to be kind to yourself. You are your longest relationship. All right.
That's exactly true.
Well, we are at the 2-hour mark. We've gotten through 5 questions. Fantastic conversations, everyone.
Out of 35, but again, these are deep questions, so they take some time.
They are deep questions. So we have come to the end of our podcast and our stream. But we will continue on. We want to ask the rest of the questions and we want to get your input on these. So I feel like we may continue this next Saturday.
I think we could.
We'll probably pull off another 5 questions.
Yeah, we could definitely do that. Get through the list eventually here. I like it.
But I want to thank everybody who has been with us in chat on Twitch and having these really meaningful conversations. Thank you so much for opening up, for conversing with us. It's been a blast. And we definitely look forward to doing this again next week.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so very much. And again, if you're listening on iTunes or Podbean or any other aggregator, feel free to subscribe and follow us. That way you get informed of whenever each podcast episode goes live. We'd love to have you listen to it and let us know your thoughts. Feel free to review or contact us as well through our website or through our social media, which is at MindMine TV or at mindminepod.com, where you can find more information on our streams as well as other content that we put up on YouTube. And you'll be able to send us messages directly about your thoughts on the different topics we cover and share with us your topics that you want us to cover later on in another episode. All right. Thank you so very much. Have an awesome weekend. And if you're around tomorrow, we will be streaming. We'll be doing a game stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/MindMineTV. We'll be playing Mad Max. So we'll be diving in more into the Mad One and his mad vehicle.
Max and Chum Bucket's Mad Adventures.
Ooh, there we go.
Have a good night, everyone.